Harbor Me, Chapter 33. The following Friday, Holly sat next to me and nodded toward the recorder. My own hands were sweating as I pressed a button and looked up at the others. I was surprised how nervous I was. No one had ever said, "Don't talk about your dad," but for some reason I had buried the story deep, and now I was going to tell it. To my friends. I kept saying that again and again in my head. "They're your friends, Haley. They're your friends." But just as I turned on the recorder, Esteban said, "I have another poem for my poppy," and Amari said, "Yes." Holly nodded at me. Esteban climbed down from the window seat and pulled the poem from his pocket. It was as wrinkled as his uniform. "I have to keep it on me," he said. "Crazy baby cousin always takes my things and messes with them. I put the other poems up on a shelf, but he can climb." Esteban smiled and shook his head. He looked tired but happy as he unfolded the poem, holding the page at its edges. His hands trembled as he read first the Spanish and then, more slowly and beautifully, the English. And when darkness came and the night felt like it wanted to swallow me, the echo of "Lights Out" was thrown back at the guards in so many beautiful languages that it sounded like the song the world has been trying to teach us since the beginning of time. He folded the poem carefully and put it back in his pocket. "It means that there are all these different things of people in detention with my poppy. And when the guards tell them that it's time for lights out, they all yell it back in their own language, so my poppy hears all the languages, and it's like they're sinking him to sleep." Esteban touched the pocket with the poem in it. "That's all I have to say for now." He climbed back onto the window ledge and wrapped his arms around his legs, resting his head on his knees. After everyone told him how beautiful the poem was, I stood up. "I want to talk now," I said. "You guys have told your stories about your families, and there's a story I haven't told you." I looked over at Holly, and she nodded again. "It's about my life. It's about my father." Esmond turned to me. "And my mother," I said, my voice cracking. "It's about what happened to me when I was little, and when I first met Holly's mom, Kara." Chapter 34. The first time I met Holly's mom, I was 7 years old, and Holly and I had only known each other for a few months. Kara, Holly's mom, had asked my uncle about doing my hair, and he agreed. No, he hadn't agreed. He nearly jumped into her arms because she could even get the words out. So the first time I was at their house, when I was sitting in their kitchen with my hair washed and dripping onto the towel, and Kara asked about my full name, about my family. The rest of the group got so quiet, I stopped talking. My throat felt like it was closing up. "You got this, Red," Amari said to me. His smile loosened the words. I looked at Holly helplessly. "It's okay," she said. "I'm here with you. I can help if you need me." Everyone nodded. I smiled at her, relieved, and Holly put her arm around me. "The thing I've never told you guys is that my dad's in prison." "Your dad's in prison?" Tiago and Amari said at the same time. I nodded. "For what?" Tiago asked. "Did he rob somebody?" "He was driving," I said slowly. "He was driving a car. My mother was in it." The room felt like it was breathing for me. As I told the story of the accident, Esteban's eyes filled and Ashton put his head down in his hands. When I got to the part about my father running home from my uncle's help, Amari said, "Geez, Red, I didn't even know." He said it quietly, almost under his breath, but in the words, there was so much love that it felt like he was reaching across the circle and hugging me. Holly was holding on to my hand now. "Is he in jail for life?" Amari asked finally. "And plus, I'm sorry about your mom." "He's going to be coming out soon," I said. "I'm not exactly sure when." "This is too deep," Amari said. "No wonder you're so quiet, Red. You all kinds of still water." When I first met Kara, she asked me about my people, and I told her my mom died. I waited to say something like, "I'm sorry," or "You poor baby," or "Oh, sweetie," but she didn't. She was combing my hair at the time, and she stopped for a minute, and her hand got real shaky. "I remember you told my mom that your mom died when you were 3, Holly said, and that you didn't really remember her." "My mommy's still with us," Esteban said. "I feel lucky for that." "But why was her hand shaky?" Ashton asked. "Was she feeling sad for you?" "No," Holly said. "That's the crazy part." She jumped up from her feet, then sat down again real fast and started tapping her foot like I wasn't telling the story fast enough. Tell him, Haley. I'm trying, I said. Kara asked if I was Beryl Anderson's child, and I told her Beryl was my mom. Your moms knew each other? Amari asked. That's wild. Yes, Holly said. It's really wild. Our moms were pregnant together. When my mom told us that, I was like, wait, what? You and who and what? I laughed. But your mom just ignored you, I said. Kara came around the chair and crouched in front of me. Her face was all worried and sad. But it was happy, too. Remember? Holly nodded. She brushed my hair back away from my forehead and said, Your mom and I used to go to Tom's Diner over on Washington's after our Lamaze classes. We'd order so much food, the waitress would always ask if someone else was joining us. And then Kara laughed, and I remembered I wanted to laugh too, but my heart felt like it was competing with my tongue for space inside my mouth. So I just whispered to Kara, You knew my mother. I stopped talking. It was hard to tell the story, but it wasn't hard. It felt like everyone in the room was leaning in and listening and really caring. It felt like everyone around me wanted everything to turn out all right. We got you, Red, Amari said quietly. You know that, right? I nodded, smiled at him, and continued. Kara told me how much I looked like my mother and how when she first saw me, she thought maybe it was possible, but it was too much of a coincidence. But Brooklyn's small when you think about it, right? Everyone nodded. It must have been like a resurrection, Ashton said. Like here was somebody that could answer your questions. Yes, I said, that's so true. I had a million questions. There were like a million conversations I had in my mind with my mother. But the first thing I asked Holly's mom was what stuff my mom loved. I remember she looked really sad then. I said, it was like she was going back to being with my mom and remembering everything about it. She thought for a long time, then finally said, Your mom loved to laugh. Even when things felt like they were falling apart, she found a way to laugh. I wanted to ask what made my mom laugh, but I didn't. For some reason, knowing that she loved laughing was enough for that moment. What about your dad? Esteban asked. Did Kara know your dad too? I shook my head. She never met him. Kara said once she and my mom became friends, they had like their ladies thing going on. Like my mom with her girls, Amari said, eating all that food after going to spin class. Women are crazy. Both me and Holly said, hey, at the same time. Amari threw his hands up. You know I'm just messing with y'all. Tell them about the sun, Holly said. The magic. Oh, yeah. There's a high window in Holly's kitchen, I said. And this crazy thing happened. The sky. Like it shifted and everything got bright. And Kara laughed and said that she and my mom used to always talk about the light. How they thought light shifting was the dead sending us messages. Love messages. She said that every time the sun goes behind a cloud and then comes out again, that's a message from the other side. I looked over at Esteban. He was staring up at the sky as though he was waiting for the sun to send him a message. He had one hand in his pocket, and I knew he was touching his palm. For the whole time that Carol was braiding my hair, I said, she talked about my mother, what she remembered, how they lost touch, how she heard about the accident, and I told her all about my uncle and how he made me laugh and how he always told me that my laugh reminded me of my mom. I stopped talking. No one said anything for a long time. Holly smiled at me and nodded, giving me a thumbs up. I felt lighter, free somehow, like I'd been carrying the weight of that story in me, not even knowing it was heavy, like so many bricks had been lifted off me. Esteban was hugging his legs again, but he was watching me now. Your story makes me think I'm happy my poppy's alive, Haley. I mean, because of your story, I can feel some hope. Because no matter what, we're going to see him again. He didn't die, and that's good. Even if everything has to change to be with him again, at least I could be with him again, right? We all nodded. He's still writing poetry, Esteban said, and breathing. He looked at me. Even though it's kind of sad what happened and everything, it feels happy too that we have each other. Like that thing Miss Laverne said about how we have to harbor each other. You remember? I nodded. I feel like your story does that. You're my same age and you have to be strong for your dad. It makes me feel like I can be strong too. And everyone else said, yeah, me too. For real.